Welcome in, everyone, to the Week 5 Start Sit Show. I'm Josh Larky. This is the Dominator. I've got 15 starts and sits for the good people today. It's early Thursday morning. We've got some Falcons Buccaneers football tonight. And after I get through these 15 starts and sits, I've got a prize picks pick 4 entry for the good people. Their lines came out pretty early this week, and they've got some exploitable ones, in my opinion. Let's get right down to it. Quarterback, we are going to be starting Anthony Richardson, Fantasy Pros consensus, quarterback 13 at the Jaguars. I had him as a start last week, and people will be like, oh, Josh, take the L. No. I will take L's on some players, not Anthony Richardson. He was off to his best game as a passer before getting hurt. What I mentioned on the show last week was that the Steelers were kind of this fraudulent elite defense that was propped up by playing bad offenses. I think we got that one right. Steelers did not look like an elite defense. And now he gets Jacksonville this week. He's most likely playing this week. That's what the reports are. Assuming Richardson is healthy, you start him against the Jaguars in what's an even better matchup now in this divisional rivalry. Stream. Sam Darnold, quarterback 18 versus the Jets. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's Sam Darnold against the Jets, and I am into it. I think this is an overreaction to last year's New York Jets. This year's New York Jets defense has been good, but not elite. Sam Darnold's honestly playing like a top 5 quarterback right now in real football, fantasy football. I would just simply ride the wave and stream him this week if needed, where Darnold's way better than advertised, and the Jets defense is a little bit worse than advertised. It's a good storm for the fantasy community to kind of sneak in there, and I think we can pluck out a little fantasy goodness. At the running back position, I'm starting Kareem Hunt. Consensus running back 22 versus, well, I can't speak this morning. Consensus running back 22 versus the Saints. So what is the bad? Well, Hunt only played 28 snaps last week. That's only 45%. SmashUp was on the field for 25 snaps, nearly as many as Hunt's 28. However, this was Kareem Hunt's first game of the season after getting elevated from the practice squad. He had 14 carries for 69 yards. That's a hefty yards per carry. And he had 3 targets, and he caught 2 of them for 16 yards. Essentially, though, here's what we should zone in on. Kareem Hunt was the focal point of the offense when on the field. 14 carries, 3 targets. That's 17 opportunities on just 28 snaps. Essentially, when Kareem Hunt was on the field, 60% of the time, more than 60% of the time even, the ball was trying to go to him. The play was designed around him. Samaje Perine had 5 carries, no targets. Carson Steele had 2 carries, 1 catch for no yards. Carson Steele has now lost 2 fumbles on just 30 touches. Rashid Rice is out long-term with a knee injury. Kareem Hunt has the potential for a pretty high running back target share, because we know the running back target share and receivers target shares are kind of inversely correlated. So like when the receivers have a high target share, running backs is often lowered, and vice versa. With fewer receiving options to throw to, this could very well mean more Kareem Hunt checkdowns. And we're going to start Tre Sermon. Who? Yes. Running back 29 by consensus at the Jaguars. Assuming Jonathan Taylor's out, obviously. He suffered a quote-unquote mild high ankle sprain in week 4. I don't know what that means. I'm not a doctor in that sense, but it's a high ankle sprain. He's a running back. And it's the same ankle that he's had issues with in the past. This is not his first ankle injury to his right ankle in the NFL. I think he's missing this week. Tre Sermon's the direct backup. I think he gets 15 to 20 touches at the Jaguars. No other running back on the Colts roster has a carry this year aside from Taylor and Tre Sermon. He's truly like this is the direct backup. It feels gross. It's just one of those times where you have a running back in a good matchup who should get a ton of touches. So you're simply starting Tre Sermon in fantasy football. I know I'm going to be doing the same thing in a few leagues of my own. Receiver. Start Brian Thomas. Wide receiver 23 by consensus versus the Colts. We're just sticking with this game. I like this game. So Thomas has 9 targets now in back-to-back games. He's got a reasonably high average depth of target with solid target volume. At this point, he's just an every week fantasy wide receiver 2. And the Colts are a top 10 matchup for outside wide receivers as well. Now, we are going to fire up 2 Packers receivers. So it's 3. So we're obviously starting Jaden Reed. And we're going to start Dontavian Wicks, the wide receiver 31, and Romeo Doubs, the consensus wide receiver 38 at the Rams. Let's just fire all of these Packers up. So both are going to be starting on the outside. And that's where the Rams have been getting killed this year. Rams have been the best matchup for fantasy points to outside receivers. Christian Watson's got his high ankle sprain. Overall, it's a high game total of 47.5. The Packers are projected for the 3rd most points overall this week. When I checked in the betting markets, Jordan Love had the 2nd highest passing yards prop, below only CJ Stroud. So it's expected a lot of passing yards. It's going to be consolidated. We got someone at the chat asking if Goodman plays a lot. I believe that is the Colts 3rd string running back. I think he's going to play, but probably not a lot. Again, no other Colts running back has received a touch yet this year. Did I get that right? We're going to Google this right now. Did I get that right? Oh, it's you. Oh my God. The chat's messing me up. It's Goodson, not Goodman. Goodson. He was a good son, not a good man. Sorry, folks. He was a good son. I mean, I don't think Sermon gets 100% of the touches. I do think he's going to severely outtouch the good son, not the good man. Jakobi Meyers. Thank you, chat, by the way. Jakobi Meyers, we're going to start him. He's the consensus wide receiver 40 at the Broncos. No Devontae Adams this week. He's not playing. He's on the trade block. I think Meyers gets enough target volume to justify starting him, even though it's a tough matchup. He's going to be my sneaky start of the week. He's at wide receiver 40. We've got 4 teams on bye. I don't want to scrape the bottom of the barrel too much lower than that. We'll talk about Meyers more shortly with prize picks. Tight end, Evan Engram. Come on down. We're starting him as the tight end 14 by consensus versus the Colts. Last week, the Colts gave up 5 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown to Pat Freiermuth. 2 weeks ago, they gave up 10 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown to Cole Kmet. The Jaguars have the 5th highest implied team total of the week. Engram tied for the team lead in targets in week 1 when he last played. And he was a limited practice participant on Wednesday already this week. So he should be returning in week 5.
DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at PlayerProfiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability, because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a Lineup Genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks you want to be overweight on, then building stacks, then setting runbacks, then optimizing, and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year. Not a week. A year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Dominator. I'm Josh Larky. We just went over our week 5 starts of the week. We're going to talk about our week 5 sits. A couple questions in the chat. Engram or Tucker Kraft? I'd lean Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft is ranked as a top 7 tight end this week. He's got a great matchup as well. I don't think you want to overthink that one. I'd lean Kraft slightly, but I wouldn't fault you for going Engram. That's just, I wouldn't go quite against the consensus that fiercely. Someone wants to know if we're giving Tyreek Hill one more shot. I mean, he's ranked as the wide receiver 24 by consensus this week. I think that feels fair. I'd say he's on the fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 cusp. So if you're someone who kind of lucked out with one of those, or not lucked out, drafted well, if you have the Brian Thomas, you drafted one of those guys a little later, or Deontay Johnson, I'm just starting those guys over Tyreek Hill. Let's get back into it. So sits of the week, quarterback, Patrick Maholmes. I'm going to keep it simple. He's the consensus quarterback 12 versus the Saints. The game total is just 42.5 points. Mahomes himself has not reached 18 fantasy points yet this year. He's averaging 1.5 passing touchdowns per game. He's reached 250 passing yards once in 4 games. No Rashid Rice, no Hollywood Brown. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be good rest of season, but I still believe it's a little early to thrust him into this high volume role. The coach speak from Andy Reid kind of confirmed Xavier Worthy's role probably won't change too much, at least in these next couple weeks. And Mahomes has also reached 20 rushing yards in just 1 of 4 games. There's not that much rushing. There's not that much passing. His name is just Patrick Mahomes. I think he looks like a matchup-based streamer until we see otherwise from him this year. Running back, I will sit Rhamondre Stevenson. The consensus running back 20 versus the Dolphins. So he's fumbled once in all 4 games this year. Seriously, I'm not kidding. He's fumbled in every game. Head coach Gerard Mayo has said Antonio Gibson's going to be getting more playing time in week 5. After the 2 strong rushing games to begin the season, Rhamondre has now had 6 carries for 23 yards and 13 carries for 43 yards rushing. Neither's very impressive. He's got 34 receiving yards on the season total. It's bad news for Rhamondre Stevenson. One more sit at the running back position. I'm going to just kill the hype train for this week at least. Braelon Allen is the consensus running back 31 at the Vikings. The hype is too much. He's ranked within 4 spots of Tre Sermon, Chase Brown, and Cowboys starting running back Rico Dowdle. Let's look at the usage. Last week, 8 carries, 1 target. That's not startable. 2 weeks ago, 11 carries, 3 targets. 3 weeks ago, 7 carries, 4 targets. Week 1, he had a carry and a target. There's just not that much work for Braelon Allen. He scored twice in week 2. I think that's keeping his stock pretty elevated, but I don't even think he's a true flex play this week. The Vikings have been steamrolling teams. They're field goal favorites in a game with just a 40.5 over under. I mean, a game where the Jets are projected to lose and it's supposed to be low scoring. That's like kind of the worst game script, if anything, for a backup running back. So I think Braelon Allen at this point is still just an extremely high upside bench stash. Turning to receiver, I'm going to be sitting Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver 32 at the Chiefs. Chiefs are a really tough matchup for outside receivers. I think Shaheed could have a dud here where he's still decently reliant on the big plays. Chiefs have really shut that down. Overall, the Saints have the 3rd lowest team total for week 5 as well. I think based on where you drafted Shaheed in fantasy, you probably have 2 to 3 better options this week. I'm also leaning towards sit status for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver 29 by consensus versus the Giants. So JSN's got 2 big games this year, Detroit and New England. Both are great matchups for slot receivers. 2 bad games this year versus Dolphins, Broncos. Those are bad slot matchups. The Giants this year have been the worst matchup for slot receivers on the season. Smith-Njigba props opened at 50.5 receiving yards. Within about an hour, they were down to 44.5 yards. It's always a bad sign when betting markets are quick to pound the under on a guy for a given week. Seahawks are also 7-point favorites. They might not need to pass much in this one. And then my sit of the week at tight end, couldn't believe how highly Taysom Hill was ranked. I saw many rankers giving him top 12 status by consensus at the Chiefs. Taysom Hill's had 5, 3, and 6 carries in his 3 games this year, 5, 3, and 6. His target totals have been 2, 1, and 0. He scored twice last week, but still it was 6 carries, 24 yards, 2 scores. That's not sustainable. Again, the Saints team totals the 3rd lowest of the week. He's touchdown dependent. That's really bad. I just think Taysom Hill. What are we doing, folks? Looking in the chat, someone said Andy Dalton over Mahomes. No, I'd still go Mahomes. Someone wants me to, pick 2 between Khalil Shakir, Michael Pittman, Wan'Dale Robinson. I would go Shakir and Pittman, assuming Neighbors is active with the 10 days for the concussion. Someone wants to know, start Pitts or drop him for Kmet. I would start Pitts. And then someone said, need 4 out of, what the hell? What are these questions, folks? Oh my God. You want me to just set the lineup for you? We need 4 out of JSN, Deontay Johnson, Zay Flowers, Rashid Shaheed, Tyreek Hill, Jerome Ford. I would, oh my God, folks. I'd sit JSN and Shaheed. All right, folks, we made it. Here's my pick 4 for prize picks on the week. Amari Cooper, more than 53.5 receiving yards. Fantasy analysts, no. The fantasy analysts have Amari Cooper ranked as a top 12 wide receiver this week for fantasy versus the Commanders. He's supposedly on the trade block. They're going to want to feature him in a good matchup. It's also a regression play. Amari Cooper has had 9, 8, 12, and 8 targets on the season, yet he's only reached 40 yards once. However, he had the massive 70 or 80-yard touchdown that was called back last week due to penalty. Either way, ultimately, we've got a great matchup for a guy on the trade block getting a ton of targets every week. Rashid Shaheed, less than 57.5 receiving yards. It's the tough matchup against the Chiefs. They're brutal against outside receivers. Saints have the third lowest projected team total. I don't expect too many big plays, but it's a high yardage total. And I think what's funny is, for contrast, Amari Cooper's the fantasy wide receiver 12 by consensus. Shaheed is 32. Yet Shaheed has a higher receiving yards prop. I just don't buy it. So there's just such a big discrepancy here. We're just going to go less on Shaheed. I'm going to take Brian Thomas Moore, 54.5 receiving yards. He's averaging nearly 70 yards per game, 4 games into his NFL career. He's only 2-2 on this line this year, but the 2 misses were high 40s for yardage. They were near misses. He gets the Colts again. That's a top 10 matchup for opposing receivers, primarily lining up on the outside. We're riding with him, and I'll ride with Jakobi Meyers more, 45.5 receiving yards. He's 3-1 on this line for the season. He's had 9 and 10 targets the past 2 weeks. There's no Devontae Adams. The matchup for against the Broncos is tough, but the only other real receiver there starting is 165-pound Trey Tucker. I'm going to chase the targets. Folks, I'm Josh Larky. This is the Dominator. I'm JLarky Tweets on Twitter. I posted that JSN line yesterday for everyone out there, the one that's changed by 5 or 6 yards already. My Twitter is a good place to see what I'm taking with my picks first, to be first throughout the week. Someone's out there, Jonathan Mingo or Pop Douglas. Oh my God, I'd go Pop Douglas. I'd lean that. Someone said they dropped Pitts for Freiermuth and picked up Hawkinson. Wait, how are you sorry about that? What the hell are we doing, people? Wait, what? So are you the same person, or am I getting the comments wrong? You dropped Komet for Pitts, but now it's actually Freiermuth? I don't know what you want my thoughts on. You dropped Pitts for Freiermuth and picked up Hawkinson. I would have kept Pitts and picked up Hawkinson. So that's what I would have done. All right, last 2. Pick 2, Waddle, Wicks, Jennings, Xavier Worthy. I will go Wicks and Worthy. And then Ford, Bucky Irving, or Hunt, you need 2. I think I'm sitting Bucky Irving. And I think I am leaving this podcast. Thank you, everyone. I love the comments. This is the best way to wake up with all of you on these Thursday mornings. I'm Josh Larky. This is the Dominator. Good luck in your Week 5 matchups.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.